a first on radio. To bring you the latest news you can use, news you can trust. Listen to Newsnight, weekdays, 6 p.m.
I'll go above and beyond the headlines.
Followed by Med Talk, Health Talk.
We'll talk about how to keep ourselves healthy during the pandemic.
Politics as usual.
Our guests for tonight, two political science professors.
Up close and more. Catch CNN Philippines in all RPN AM radio stations. Weekdays, 6 to 7 p.m. CNN Philippines Hour.
Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. DX General Santos. DX General Santos. Una sa balita. Una sa balita. Musika ug kalingawan. Mas tulong pinalakas. Radyo.
This is CNN Philippines.
President of the Philippines, Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
I, Maria Leonor Herona Rodrigo, having been appointed to the position of chair.
Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Tonight on the program, a big turn of events in the drug allegations against President Duterte's staunch critic, Senator Laila de Lima. Self-confessed drug lord Kerwin Espinosa backs down, saying all of his claims against the senator were false. Health officials find more close contacts at the country's first case of the Omicron BA.2.12 subvariant. And yet another action-packed day for sports. Filipino basketball sensation Kai Soto declares for the NBA 2022 rookie draft, while fans are close to finding out the teams for the UAAP Final Four. We begin with this developing story. A self-confessed drug dealer, Kerwin Espinosa, recanting all his previous claims against detained Senator Laila de Lima, saying the claims were just a result of, quote, pressure, coercion, intimidation, and serious threats to his life and family. Amor Santos joins us live to help us make sense of this. Amor, what else do we know about this case?
Well, Pia, in a counter affidavit filed at the DOJ this morning, Kerwin Espinosa said there's no truth to all the claims he previously made against Senator Laila de Lima. His lawyer, Raymond Palad, confirmed to CNN Philippines that the document was submitted to the DOJ this morning and that Espinosa himself appeared online to confirm his signature this afternoon. Espinosa said he was quote-unquote coerced, pressured, intimidated, and seriously threatened by the police to implicate de Lima in the illegal drug trade, and that he made the stories up out of fear for his life and the safety of his family. During congressional hearings on the killing of his father, Mayor Rolando Espinosa, in 2016, the younger Espinosa said he gave more than 8 million pesos in drug money to De Lima through her driver, Ronnie Dayan. It was supposedly for De Lima's senatorial campaign. But in his latest counter affidavit, Espinosa said he had no dealings with the senator and never gave her any money. He even apologized to De Lima for his false testimony. Espinosa is detained at Camp Bagong Diwa facing his own drug cases. His lawyer said his transfer there from the Witness Protection Program following his alleged attempt to escape gave him the courage to tell the truth.
Ever since na ma-cover siya ng WPD, ang presumption niyan is that if you're a witness for the government, you will be utilized as a witness and the cases filed against you will be dropped. No? Yun ang condition yan eh. But from the time na maging maipasok siya sa WPP, never siya nag-testify or was utilized as a witness for the government. No cases were dropped. And continuously, the government files case against him, tuloy-tuloy. Nung wala na siya sa jurisdiction ng NBI, ang sabi niya sa akin, sige, attorney, gawin mo na yung counter affidavit. Kasi nga, mas secure siya feeling niya sa BJMP.
Espinosa's camp expects that the withdrawal of his confession also weakens the drug charges against him. Back to you.
Amor, what will the impact be on Senator De Lima's remaining drug cases?
Well, Pia, Kerwin Espinosa's lawyer refused to answer that, saying that Espinosa was never used as a witness by the prosecution. But for the camp of Senator De Lima, his lawyer, attorney Philippine Hour, said it only proves that the Duterte administration fabricated the testimonies against De Lima, and the De Lima camp is also hoping other witnesses will tell the truth and name those who coerced them to testify against the senator. Of course, Malacanang has been saying that the justice system works and there's evidence against De Lima. That's why she was incarcerated. Pia?
Amor Santos there reporting. In the end, the truth will still come out. These are words from Senator Laila De Lima's lawyer reacting to this major development. Attorney Philippine Hour saying Kerwin Espinosa's affidavit, quote, only proves the length the current administration has gone to fabricate testimonies and evidence against the senator. Tacardon also hopes other witnesses will come forward and confess how they were pushed into making false testimonies and naming those who actively participated in coercing them. For vice presidential candidate Senator Kiko Pangilinan, he says it is high time to set De Lima free, especially after Espinosa backtracked on his allegations. De Lima has been detained since 2017. He is seeking re-election under the Robredo Pangilinan slate. 2 months before he steps down from office, President Duterte admits he was wrong to believe he could end the illegal drug trade in 3 to 6 months. This is one of his campaign promises. Acting presidential spokesperson Martin Andanara says Mr. Duterte did not know the depth and complexity of the drug problem when he ran in 2016. Here's the president in his own words.
It was campaign time. Payabangan naman yung kampanya. Pagdating ko sa Manila, dala ko yung chief of police ko, yung si Bato. Yung binuksan na yung records. Paano ako 6 generals of the PNP were playing with drugs. Sabi ko, paano tayo mabubuhay nito? Ang pulis, imbis magtrabaho, nabibigyan rin. So, it corrupts it destroys the fabric of society. Over time,
the chief executive urged rebels engaged in drug trafficking to back down. Health workers have identified more close contacts of the country's first case of the Omicron subvariant BA.2.12. With this new subvariant, health experts say the more people need to get their COVID-19 booster shots. Caroline Bonkin reports.
The 52-year-old Finnish national arrived in the country on April 2nd without COVID-19 symptoms. But 9 days later, she experienced a headache and sore throat. On April 11th, she tested positive for COVID-19 with the Omicron subvariant BA.2.12. Health authorities found 44 close contacts, including those she interacted with in seminars in Quezon City and Benguet, as well as her co-passengers on the plane. 2 of these contacts were tested and both were negative for COVID. Another one in Quezon City has scratchy throat, but it's not yet clear if that person got tested.
We are considering the 14 days incubation period. What we are doing right now is closely monitoring and trying to do sequencing also among these individuals na nandun po sa mga nakasalamuhan.
DOH is still unsure if she got infected in Finland on the plane or here in the Philippines. Health authorities not discounting BA.2.12 is already in the community.
The possibility is there. We know the limitations of our testing. We know the limitations of our sequencing.
BA.2.12 is an offshoot of the Omicron variant, but Vergere coding study says while it causes less severe infection, this subvariant is 2.5 times more transmissible than Omicron, which was earlier considered as the most transmissible variant. Infectious disease specialist Jean Solante says getting a booster shot is more important now than ever. Like Omicron, BA.2.12 diminishes the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccine.
Because of that, the risk of more people that will be getting the infection will always be higher compared to the previous variants of concern.
When combined with super spreader events this summer in the election season, the country might be looking at another surge in cases.
That's why we have to constantly monitor uptick of cases. We strictly follow the health protocol at all times, even especially with this coming election. Pa-booster na tayo dahil meron ng threat for some variant.
So far, majority of the samples checked for variants in the country have Omicron. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
4 people were killed after an old steel bridge, the Clarin Bridge, collapsed in Loay town in Bohol. A dozen vehicles fell into the Lobok River on Wednesday afternoon. 23 persons were rescued. Half of the vehicles were retrieved. Bohol Governor Arthur Yap says assistance will be given to the victims. Officials are also seeking an investigation into the incident. Coming right up, a fresh COVID-19 surge poses a threat to the country with just days before the Filipino votes. What steps is the COMELEC taking to address this? And this Filipino basketball star is taking one step closer to realizing his dreams. More about Kai Soto's entry into the NBA rookie draft when we come back.
What makes a nation grow? Every day we see them. The providers, the traders, the movers, the doers, and the go-getters. Each play their part, whether big or small, in creating a better life for all. Whichever your role may be, we're right here for you. We are Land Bank, and we are here to make this nation grow.
Kinto One, Toyota's global leasing service, gives you the freedom to move, to go where you want, the freedom to be productive, freedom to pursue your passion. Kinto One, powered by Toyota, lets you choose how you drive your life, giving you the freedom to enjoy what matters most. The freedom to drive worry-free is yours. Kinto One. Subscribe and drive.
Kamusta kayo? Kaya pa ba? Pasensya na, toxic, no?
Welcome back. The Commission on Elections insists there are safeguards to protect over 65 million Filipino voters amid the threat of another COVID surge ahead of May 9. Melissa Lopez reports.
COMELEC stands firm. The May 9 polls will proceed as scheduled despite the threat of a fresh surge in COVID-19 infections.
Sigurado po tayo, suspension is not an option.
We have contingency measures. So, kung yung mga may spike, the Committee on New Normal has prepared on how to respond to that. Kahit anong mangyari, we will have an elections. Laban kung laban.
This reassurance came a day after health officials detected the first case of the Omicron subvariant BA.2.12 from a Finnish woman who visited Quezon City and Baguio City and then left for abroad. Contact tracing is underway. Commissioner Ray Bulay says the 1987 Constitution mandates the poll body to hold the elections specifically on the second Monday of May. In fact, the poll body formally asked President Rodrigo Duterte to declare May 9th as a non-working holiday to encourage registered voters to cast their ballots. COMELEC earlier signed a multi-agency deal with DOH, DILG, DepEd, and DND to ensure that health protocols will be enforced on voting day. Masks are a must for all voters, and physical distancing must be followed at all times inside a voting center. For areas that remain under alert levels 4 and 5, face shields are mandatory. The DOH earlier suggested time limits for voters to keep areas from overcrowding. Despite the Omicron subvariant detection and the huge campaign crowds in the past few weeks, COMELEC says a strict implementation of the protocols should keep election events from becoming super spreaders. Other last-minute preparations are underway. Ballot boxes and transmission devices have been fully dispatched. Half of all ballots were deployed, while nearly all of over 106,000 vote-counting machines have already been farmed out to local hubs. Defective ballots are set to be shredded on May 7th, while the media transparency server for tallied votes is being readied at the UST Quad Arena. It's all systems go as far as COMELEC is concerned. Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
Former Senator Bongbong Marcos is not participating in COMELEC's presidential panel interview. His spokesperson, Vic Rodriguez, says Marcos chose to visit supporters and attend to prior commitments instead of taking part in the COMELEC event scheduled for Sunday, May 1st. Marcos skipped the two COMELEC presidential debates. On the other hand, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno says he is open to attending the panel interview if his schedule permits.
Bakit hindi? Ang ano naman natin dyan, kung yung mga commitment, katulad ng nasabi kanina na marami pa tayong probinsyang babalikan at pupuntahan at munisipyo. But if the schedule will allow, yes, of course, I'll be happy to join. Nag-a-apply ako sa trabaho. Ang nag-a-apply sa trabaho, hindi naman namimili kung paano siya i-interviewin ng kanyang future employer.
COMELEC was supposed to hold its presidential and vice presidential town hall debates this weekend, but canceled them because of conflicting schedules of candidates. Well, the campaign heats up with only 11 days left until the Filipino votes. Supporters of Bongbong Marcos and Vice President Leni Robredo face off in a shopping mall in Makati City. Security guards try to defuse the situation, but passionate supporters in red and pink kept jeering at each other. Marcos met with nearly a dozen governors, including the governors of Benguet, Cavite, and Laguna. His campaign says they discussed efforts to protect votes. Isko Moreno, who is in the city of Bacolod, brushes off charges filed against him in connection with the sale of the Divisoria Public Market in Manila. He and 5 other Manila officials are facing a graft case before the Office of the Ombudsman after the popular flea market was sold to a private company.
Yun naman yung mga traditional politician. Alam ng tao yun. Alam na tayo, basang-basa sa Maynila yun. Hindi nila matutulongges yung mga taga Maynila. And I wish them good luck. Matatanda na sila. Alam na nila ang tama at mali. Katatapos lang na Semana Santa. Ano sabi ni Jesus? Ama, patawarin mo sila. Hindi nila alam ang kanilang ginagawa.
Senator Ping Lacson plans to collect the Marcos family's unpaid estate taxes that has since ballooned to 203 billion pesos if he wins the presidency.
Siguro kung lumabas yan panahon ng mga ibang presidente, baka siningil na yan. No? Hindi na sana umabot ng 203 billion. So that should be collected because that should be government's funds, dahil tax collection yan.
Senator Manny Pacquiao wants to appoint businessman Mimo Osmeña as finance secretary if he wins. Osmeña is the president of MRC Allied Industries. He's also the son of former Cebu Governor Lito Osmeña. Pacquiao earlier said his campaign manager, mining magnate Buddy Zamora, will lead his economic team. The retired boxer is campaigning in Leyte, home province of former First Lady Imelda Marcos, the mother of his rival, Bongbong. Well, how is Isko Moreno coping day-to-day in his campaign? What has he learned so far? And was running for president worth it despite being a shoo-in for re-election as Manila mayor? CNN Philippines spoke to Moreno in private as part of its exclusive one-on-one series with presidential candidates. Paulo Barcelon with the highlights.
Kapag sa akin tumaya,
Despite multiple shifts of support from his home base, presidential candidate Isko Moreno Domagoso is grateful for people supporting him from the beginning. He said his happiest moments are seeing supporters in the streets and in rallies.
ang nakakatuwa lang sa kabilang banda, whether umuulan or kasagsagan ng araw, people are going out of their houses when we're in their area.
But this 47-year-old candidate recognizes how hard campaigning can be. He's conquering fear of heights in instances where he flies to reach remote areas. He says he only gets a maximum of 3 to 4 hours of sleep a day. And despite his family going all out in support of him, it's their company of his wife Daini and his children Patrick, Frances, Joaquin, Franco, and Drake that he longs for the most.
Parang cabinet na lang yung bahay. You go, then repeal yung maliit na maleta kasi 2 days ka rito, 3 days ka doon.
In a one-on-one interview, Moreno was asked about his campaign funds that sparked controversy when he admitted keeping 50 million pesos worth of excess campaign donations in the 2016 elections.
At this time, feeling ko walang excess fund. Ay, muka. If and there is no law, at may sumobra, babayad ako ng buwis.
Like what you did the last time?
Of course.
All right.
If elected, he promises to emulate his personality as a Manila mayor by working round the clock. He says a Domagoso administration will be politically colorblind in making appointments and that he will also have a slot for 2 of his closest allies.
Doc Willie is one.
Okay, give me two more.
Basta, yung 2 more kasi nando sa kabilang dako. I don't want to create animosities within their group. But I do believe in that guy. Saka yung babae na yun.
Polito Banaya, where would you put him?
Oh, he'll be in Malacanang, definitely.
As what?
Closer to me. I need wise
Executive
people.
Secretary, ganon?
It can be, but it's closer to me.
For the final question, Domagoso had to answer if his decision to run for the presidency was worth it.
At least ngayon, masasabi ko sa'yo, I had a very good decision in running. Tama pala na tumakbo ako ng pagka-presidente. Unang nakikita ko, para bang yung assessment ko, hindi makakamove on ang bansa natin sa mga bagay na dapat natin ginagawa para sa kabutihan ng tao at ng bansa. Kung ang mangingibabaw sa atin, puro higantihan na lang.
Paulo Barcelon, CNN Philippines.
CNN Philippines also sat down with presidential hopeful Senator Manny Pacquiao as we help the Filipino voters choose their candidate in the run-up to Decision Day. We asked Pacquiao if he got a sign from God on whether or not he will continue his fight for the presidency.
Yung sinasabing sign ay mas pinatibay pa ng Panginoon yung paniniwala ko. Pinatibay pa ng Panginoon yung paniniwala ko na tuloy ang laban para ito sa for God and country ito. Yan ang nakikita ko, kaya tuloy ang laban.
Catch senior anchor Rico Hizon's in private conversation with Manny Pacquiao tonight at 8, only here on CNN Philippines. Imagine driving without having to pay mind to rising fuel prices. This perk, as well as the environmental benefits, has driven the government to encourage using electric cars. Our senior correspondent Lois Calderon reports a large company also stepped up to support the e-vehicle shift.
Gas remains expensive, and it's giving the auto industry and motorists a solid reason to go green. Big names like SM Malls are jumping on the clean energy bandwagon. The property giant built charging stations for e-vehicles for free.
We all know that, gasoline prices have shot up, no? So this is very timely.
It takes 8 hours to fully charge an e-vehicle at the mall's parking lot. That's a lot of electricity. But the mall giant is relying less and less on power from the grid and wants to source half of its energy needs from renewables by year-end. SM's bonus: the mall gets more foot traffic.
You don't have to even wait at the parking lot, no? So they could just go out, dine, shop, watch a movie.
Electric vehicles are nice to have and are ideal. But they are not cheap if manufacturers cannot produce in volumes that cut production costs. To date, there's just a little over 12,000 electric vehicles on Philippine roads. They're not even cars, but you see them in places like Boracay Island, which bans other diesel-powered public transport.
E-jeepney, e-tricycle, so meron na tayong ganoon. Pero yung kotse, kailangan pa natin ng manufacturers. And para mangyari yon, kailangan ma-encourage mo muna na maraming users.
The shift to clean vehicles, however, could gain momentum, and government peddles incentives to get there. The roadmap that charts where the electric vehicle industry should go is ready after President Duterte let a bill lapse into law this week.
Sinama natin siya sa CREATE, yung Strategic Investment Priorities Plan, na entitled sa mga tax incentives, no? At saka lower income tax rate. Tapos we're thinking of giving more incentives yung hindi nagamit sa CARS program. Mag-allocate tayo para masuportahan din yung local manufacturing ng electric vehicle.
Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez was referring to an ambitious program laid down by the Aquino government to boost local car production in a way where local parts suppliers are not left out. Only Toyota and Mitsubishi qualified for those tax breaks on the condition that the two big brands can make 600,000 cars within 6 years. And they have yet to meet the target. Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
Stories ahead, including the latest in the basketball world. One of our kababayans has declared for the NBA rookie draft. Details when we return on Newsnight.
Conquering the universe was the ultimate, but there's more. Dahil tinawag ho ako ng Panginoon for a major purpose. To guide the youth, help communities, and to bring others closer to Him. Kaya I take care of my health through proper diet, exercise, and MX3 capsule. I am ready to serve. Kasi para sa Panginoon, hindi lang ako fourth runner-up. First place ako sa puso niya.
Mahalagang paalala, ang MX3 capsule ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Seguridad ang pundasyon ng isang progresibong bansa. Ito'y nasimulan noon at ngayon ating itutuloy sa Senado. Katahimikan, laban sa anumang banta at mabilisang serbisyo para sa mga tao. Ito ang susi ng pag-asenso upang ang mga negosyo lumago at bawat Pilipino'y magkatrabaho. Yan ang ipaglalabang ko. Ibo Chodoro sa Senado.
Nakita ko lang, binubula lang yung taong bayan. Lalo na pag-eleksyon. Ang babait ng mga politiko eh.
Sa tingin po ninyo, your experience is enough to run the country?
Pag sinabi mong executive job, sanay ako dyan. Dahil lumaki akong naghahanap buhay, nagmamanis ng bahay namin. Pamumuhay namin.
Magbaback out kayo kung merong sign from God. Meron na bang sign?
Yung sinasabing sign ay mas pinatibay pa ng Panginoon yung paniniwala ko na tuloy ang laban.
Welcome back to Newsnight. Many economies, including our own, have drowned in this pandemic, with tourism leading the way to recovery. How are Filipinos rising to the challenge? Lois Calderon brings us back to El Nido in Palawan for the answers.
El Nido Resort in Miniloc Island recycles wastewater for use in flushing toilets. When the coral garden near the shoreline becomes infested with starfish known as the crown of thorns, The resort's in-house biologists ask locals to help clear the infestation without chemicals.
We have been extracting the predators over long periods of years, okay, in such unhealthy numbers. Now we have this predicament where crown of thorns starfish could infest a reef and annihilate, huge areas of coral reef.
Behind any successful sustainability programs are the locals themselves, but advocates rally support for tourists like you and me. Simple gestures like not feeding the fish with bread, not using single-use plastic water bottles, and not collecting seashells could have an impact that benefits not only this generation.
El Nido gets high praises from the World Travel and Tourism Council, which released a set of global criteria for measuring how hotels and resorts save water, what chemicals are used for linens, and how they reduce carbon emissions, plastic, and other waste.
They might already be ahead of the game, but the point here is not about the hotels that are ahead of the game, though they're already on that journey.
Travel data analytics firm Forward Keys says the Philippines and Singapore are early winners, emerging from a pandemic-driven drought, while rivals like Thailand, Indonesia, and Japan have yet to fully open. With the influx of tourists, it's inevitable that mom-and-pop hotels and resorts, the SMEs, jump on the sustainability bandwagon. El Nido could be that local model for a sustainable blue economy.
I'm feeling great. I'm thinking of starting to work from here, more far in the Philippines.
Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
In sports, Kai Soto is ready to take his talents to the NBA. The athlete has declared for the 2022 rookie draft, fresh from his stint at the Australian National Basketball League. Soto thanked his team, the Adelaide 36ers. Now here at home, the UAAP Final Four cast slowly taking shape. The NU Bulldogs keep their semi-final hopes alive, beating the still winless UE Red Warriors 100-81 today. The De La Salle Green Archers have reason to celebrate with the squad entering the Final Four. La Salle defeated Adamson 64-51. And the Ateneo Blue Eagles just one win away from an outright final slot. They kept their unblemished record by beating the FEU Tamaraws 70-53. FEU, NU, and Adamson now tied for fourth place. Sunday's games at the Mall of Asia Arena may determine the final four teams. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight. Welcome back to Politics as Usual. Lenny Robredo has been picking up some endorsements in the last few weeks. Bebot Alvarez for Davao Norte, as we were talking about earlier. P.D. Barzaga for Cavite, Juliet Yu of Misamis Oriental, and Lawrence Fortun for Agusan Norte. Let's talk significance. Congressman Lawrence Fortun joining us via Zoom, and still here in the studio with us, VP candidate Vito David and Richard A. Darian, the analyst. And Melvin Matibag is here also. So, teka muna, sinong unahin natin? Okay, wait. Melvin, sandali lang ah. We'll speak first to Lawrence because I wasn't able to read that intro for you. So, we'll talk first to Congressman Fortun. Stand by, ha, Melvin. Okay, so Congressman Fortun. So, why Lenny?
Well, ako naman, very personal ang basis ko for supporting Lenny. I had observed her up close when we were together in Congress during our first term, when we were neophyte representatives of in the House. And I observed very closely Lenny's style of working. She's very, very diligent, napakasipag. She worked from morning to evening. And she knew what she wanted to do while she was representative. And I admire very much her legislations, especially in the areas of people empowerment, transparency and accountability in governance, and especially her bills on inclusive and participative governance. So these are very important basis for me, for supporting VP Lenny.
Well, let's go local, Congressman Fortuno. Explain to us the dynamics there in your district, 1st District, Agusan Norte, so that we can better understand why you're going for Lenny. May suporta ba siya dyan sa inyo? Is it, malawak ba ang suporta niya dyan? Or are you all by your lonesome?
Well, uh, recent developments on the ground have shown that VP Lenny, in the course of the campaign period, has become a rallying and unifying figure, for people from different sectors and practically from different walks of life, who share the collective aspiration for inclusive and honest and accountable and competent governance. She started with not much support from local political leaders, but there's a very strong sense of volunteerism on the part of those supporting her on the basis of her concrete track record and genuine advocacies for accountable and transparent governance. Lahat ito nakikita natin sa mga developments. So, talking about unity, I think that VP Lenny is the kind of candidate who has been able to build unity from the ground up, which makes it even very strong, and stronger than those of the others, because of the foundation upon which that kind of unity rests. And I think this will manifest in the days leading towards the elections.
Can you give us a little bit more of an idea, yung mga alignments dyan sa local politics? Who are the other politicians who are for the other presidential candidates?
Well, yung mga bagong developments, you would see that only in Mindanao, but also in different parts of the country. While there's this recent survey that has been released only now, I would rather want to see the surveys, that the next surveys, that would be more reflective of the impact of more recent developments on the ground. These have been shown by spontaneous and remarkable groundswell that we have seen, not only in the mammoth rallies, but also in the recent declarations of support from local political leaders. And I think all of these will have an impact in the days to come. Yesterday, you have Northern Samar, all mayors, and the governor and the vice governor and the congressman, all declaring support for VP Lenny. But before that, you have Misamis Oriental, the congresswoman Juliet Uy, and 11 mayors, all declaring support for the vice president. And you have about the same day, I think the following day, 15 more mayors from Lanao del Sur declaring support for the vice president. And you have the president of the National Unity Party that was said to have declared support for BBM, but you have the president declaring support for VP Lenny. Now, all of these will have impact. Alam natin na magkakaroon ng malaking impact tong mga to dahil we know that local political leaders have strong following in their respective jurisdictions, and they have well-entrenched machineries that will significantly contribute to the already growing volunteerism-driven and people-backed support and initiatives on the ground.
Well, impact, but you have BBM in the Lilo survey, the latest Lilo survey, middle of March, 61%. Lenny is 19%. And then everybody else is like a poor third, fourth, and fifth.
Yes, yun nga, ang impact kasi nitong mga to, yung recent declaration of support will manifest, malalaman natin yan pagkilos na ng kanilang mga makinarya, pagkilos na ng kanilang mga suporta. These are very recent declarations of support that have been happening almost on a daily basis in the last few days. But of course, the impact of these declarations of support would be seen when the supporters, the following, the machineries of these political leaders would already work.
Yeah, but can Lenny still win against BBM if Isko, Manny, and Ping are still running, or well, still in the running?
What's that again?
Can Lenny
Okay,
still
I
win,
didn't-
even if all the others are still running or still in contention? Because earlier, we have Lito David here, VP candidate, and I'm sure you're aware that he did make that proposal for VP candidates and the presidential candidates to, for all of them, well, the rest of them, to unite against BBM and Sara. And that's why we're going to speak to Melvin Matibag in just a bit. And Richard Herdarian also here. Yun ang pinag-uusapan namin kanina.
Well, it's going to be a very welcome development, no? If all the other candidates rally behind a common candidate, and that should be VP Lenny, because she's the one closest to the front runner. But in the event that there's no withdrawals, no, from the other candidates, I think VP Lenny has just to continue. And this is a marathon. You know, we're still in the middle of the campaign period. And so much has been happening on the ground, and we believe that there will be a continuous snowball for VP Lenny. And I think although there's little time, but I think it's not impossible for VP Lenny to finally make it on the D-Day.
Yun nga lang, sabi nga ni Richard Hidarian dito na if anything should happen, it should happen within March, which just, it's ending in 2 days. But anyway, standby lang, Congressman Fortun. Let's speak now to Melvin Matibag, because shortly after the PDP Laban Kusi faction endorsed Bongbong Marcos's candidacy, Senator Bongo revealed that President Duterte and the candidate met in Malacanang. Does this mean a presidential endorsement can't be too far behind? So before I ask you about that, Mr. Matibag, let's talk first about that latest Lilo survey. So you have, 61% BBM. Sure winner na ba yan?
Unless, I think if you look at the 61%, that is something that is difficult to overcome for any candidate.
Yeah, unless
yung 61 niya, 61 yung kasunod niya si VP Lenny is 19, so it's very far. And probably we look at, if you will drill the survey and look at the hard votes, yung hindi na magbabang yung isip, I'm sure mataas din yan, so it's difficult. If we look at the date of the survey, it was done March 15 to 22, and PDP Laban made the announcement of support only on March 22. So yung effect pa nung announcement ng PDP at that time the survey was done, wala pa siya ron. So in the next survey, mas tataas pa sigurado yung numbers ni Senator
So you have
Bongbong
nothing
Marcos.
to worry about, Mr. Matibag, in other words, unless, let's say, what if mag-unite bigla ang opposition? You have VP Lenny, Isko, Manny, Ping, what if biglang magsama-sama sila? Kahit hindi sila mag-withdraw ng candidacy, endorse lang nila yung isa sa kanila. Are you going to worry then, or it won't matter to you?
There will be an effect, but I don't think that will be enough to steal the election from Senator Bongbong Marcos. After ng endorsement ng PDP, sumunod na yung Nationalista Party, also party na malaki yung base nila. And PDP Laban have a strong ground support. We have more than 7,000 candidates, and 80% of which are incumbent candidates. And as we speak now, a lot of governors already making their formal endorsement of Senator Bongbong Marcos. Si Governor Dax Cua is kanina nagsalita na, nag-send ng message sa press conference namin that the province of Quirino is committed to Senator Bongbong Marcos. Then Zamboanga, Governor Berto Uy already sent his support. So marami talaga Meron talagang mga pumupunta rin kay VP Lenny, pero I don't think that is enough to win an election. Medyo talagang mataas na Yung pagsama ng PDP Laban, yun na yung magbibigay ng ground support sa candidacy.
Okay. Is President Duterte going to endorse BBM? Would you know that for a fact? And if he doesn't, will it matter? If he does, will it matter? Or who cares for an endorsement from the president now?
Ito lang sabihin ko, we are a PDP Laban is a political party who expose yung democratic participation. So we made consultation. And yung ginawa namin na pag-endorso kay Senator Bongbong Marcos, alam ng lahat ng PDP Laban yan. So yung sabihin, merong mga hindi pumayag. Pero at the end of the day, yung majority yung sinusunod dyan. And we are very happy na yun talaga yung ginagawa ng mga local candidates natin. Well, speaking of President Duterte, I'd rather leave it to him na siya yung magsabi kung mag-i-endorso siya. Of course, we are hoping na openly samahan niya yung endorsement ng PDP laban. But let me say it again, that whatever the party's decision, lahat yan ay pinapaalam sa lahat ng miyembro ng PDP.
Dalawang malaking issue laban sa inyong kandidato. Number one, itong estate taxes, unpaid estate taxes. And number two, itong, yung sinasabi nila, no, the party, quote unquote, the party that was formed to fight against a dictator now endorsing his son. You don't care, right, about those issues. It doesn't matter because, well, the survey show you number one ang
let's address
kandidato
first the issue of PDP laban. Well, hindi naman yata din eksakto when you say that PDP laban is formed to fight the dictator. Because if that is only the purpose, sabi nga dyan, functions of issues, tapos na yon dahil wala naman tayong dictator na nilalabanan ngayon eh. And in fact, in 2016, PDP laban supported PRRD. And alam naman nila si PRRD, very independent. Si PRRD, 3-generation PDP laban yan. So sila talaga isa sa original yan. Meron pong mga principles sa PDP laban na sinusunod at hindi naman lang yung sasabihin labanan yung dictator.
Okay.
And
In other words, you've moved on.
Magandang tingnan ngayon, you are fighting the Marcoses at that time, pero ngayon, you see the Marcoses embracing what PDP laban is fighting for, kung ano yung mga pinaglalaban. So, hindi naman po kasi pag-aari ng isang pamilya o ng isang tao ang PDP laban. Ang PDP laban is a party who is democratic. Meron pong decision-making yan, and that is ruled by the majority. And yan po yung ginagawa namin.
Alright.
So the issue po of excise tax, wala yan. I know na ang excise, yung issue ng excise tax is still pending with the court. So wala po pong finality yan. And even if there's a finality, ang liability po ng estate tax is not addressed to the individual or the administrator. The estate tax is the responsibility of the estate. Ipag tinignan niyo po yung batas yun, meron pong separate legal personality bawat isa dyan. So I'd rather give it to the authority, to the court, how they will decide on it. And not to mention na more than 10 years na po yan. I don't know if prescription already set in.
But isn't BBM the co-administrator of the estate of his father?
Well, ang sinasabi ko nga po, ang estate tax, ang liability po ng estate tax belongs to the estate. So, not to mention that the case is still pending with the court. And sabi ko nga, sa batas po, meron po mga tinatawag na prescriptive period dyan eh. So if it's over 10 years, I think that is a question of law that I'd rather leave it to the expert, to the authority, and that is the court to decide on.
But BBM is co-administrator of his father's estate, correct?
Well, on the record,
Yes.
kung yung po yung lumalabas yung estate po na yan is kung siya ay co-administrator, it doesn't necessarily follow that the administrator is the one liable. And if there's a court order which is final, that's the time that you execute it. But from what I know, the case still pending in the court, so I'd rather leave it to the court kung ano po yung decision.
All right. Mr. Melvin Matibag of PDP Laban and Kong Lawrence Fortun, I hope you can stay to the end of the show. You're still going to be joining us via Zoom to end the show. More from our guests when we return. This is Politics as Usual. We're on our final stretch. This is Politics as Usual. Our guests still join us via Zoom. Melvin Matibag and Lawrence Fortun and former Secretary Renato de Villa. Richard Hedarian and Rizalito David still here in the studio. Just to wrap things up a bit, your thoughts muna, Richard, and everything that you've heard from Lawrence Fortun, Melvin Matibag, Rene de Villa. Ang dami na naman pinag-usapan, but doesn't necessarily mean there's maraming nagyayari, ano? And then let's combine that with, all these endorsements that have come out from the different governors, mayors, etc., for either Lenny or BBM, etc.
Well, I mean, first of all, ito yung mga tinuturo sa university, classic collective action problem. Each party have an interest to protect. And for some of them, it's not only about these elections, it's about what's going to happen afterwards. No? Kahit matalo ko, but if I also alienate my base, then what's going to be my political future, right? For others, they're thinking about potentially cutting the deal with the victor, no? So this is the problem, collective action problem, because each of these parties, candidates have their own interests. The other thing that we have to keep in mind also is the second preference numbers. Both Lacson and Isko have relatively high second preference numbers. So they're still hoping na kung may mangyayaring bandwagoning, reverse bandwagoning, etc., it will actually benefit them, right? Rather than other candidates. Which brings me to the other point. If you want to make this race actually more competitive, actually you would want people like Isko actually to pick up, for instance. Because if you look at Isko, he has very high second preference and he has very high overlap with Bongbong Marcos, not with Lenny. So realistically, the only way this race can be a little bit closer among 2 or 3 candidates is if Isko picks up at the expense of BBM. Because if Isko withdraws, it's very possible that BBM picks up more numbers than Lenny. So there's also that issue of sino magbe-benefit in terms of if some of the candidates get out. And the last thing I want to also emphasize here, of course, as I said, the paradox is among the surveys are suggesting my runaway winner, and yet if you look at the on the ground, you see a fragmentation in the administration team for that matter. If you look at Mindanao, so there are 2 major blocks we have to look at. One is the Mindanao block, which is quite coherent, nakita natin in 2019. And then you have millions of new Generation Z voters, right, who are coming in, who may be a bit more soft in terms of their hierarchy of choices. Those 2 could still swing. That's why there could be some fluidity here. But will it necessarily swing in favor of the opposition against the administration? That's a big question. But one thing I want to emphasize here is this. Mukhang walang problema in terms of supporting Sara. I think Mindanao is solidly behind Sara. The openness is on the presidential candidate. Because I think when you look at the Solid South, they close the ranks on the national level when one of them is involved. But Bongbong Marcos is not from Mindanao. And we know the Marcos dictatorship had a very negative history in Mindanao. And that is why I'm not surprised some folks from Cagayan, some folks from Lanao, etc., are more comfortable with the Lenny presidential candidate rather than the Bongbong Marcos candidate. But at the same time, maybe okay still with Sara Duterte as being the vice presidential candidate. So I think these are the things that we have to keep in mind. Yeah.
What do you think pala of these, yung mga Lenny, all those pink rallies that were happening in different areas, is that good for the vote?
It creates enthusiasm.
Optics,
yes, it creates enthusiasm.
Yeah.
It projects power. It projects momentum. I think mahalaga yan dun sa mga hindi pa masyadong clear, dun sa gusto nilang, let's call them the bandwagoners or soft voters. I think
or
this
thinking of Lenny as their second choice.
Yes, second choice, etc. And honestly, pagdating sa surveys, I'm not very clear the hierarchies are that clear in a sense that talagang second choice nila, second choice nila. I think the hierarchy is a little bit more fluid.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we have to be clear. Each camp on the opposite sides have a never the other candidates. There's like never Marcos and never Lenny. And that's why I'm saying, if you're Isko or Lacson to a lesser degree, you would still hope that your high second preference could still pick up. And in this case, mostly at the expense of the front runner. So that's something we're not talking about because we're assuming there's only 2 sides of this race, when there are other sides who still can pick up because of high second preference numbers.
We have the last 6 minutes of the show. We're going to get final words first from everyone. Let's begin with Secretary Rene De Villa, Chairman Emeritus of Partido Reforma. Secretary De Villa.
Hi, Pia. I just find the discussions very interesting. As you know, I am just an observer of the whole situation now, even if I am totally supportive of Ping Lacson. So it's a good discussion, and I congratulate you for it.
Well, I have good guests, including you, sir. Thank you, Secretary De Villa. Congressman Lawrence Fortun.
Well, I find genuine hope in the recent declarations of support from local political leaders, despite the numbers. That would only mean that these recent declarations of support are not results of, declarations of support for political expediency, but rather these are cases of local political leaders heeding their good conscience and putting the interest of the country first. And since that is the strong basis for these declarations of support, I expect that there would be a continuous declaration of support also from other political leaders around the country. And we would notice later the snowball of support for real reforms. So malayo pa ito at kami naniniwala na tutuloy-tuloy ito. And there will be more leaders that will be mastering the resolve to be on the right side of history, especially in these 2022 elections.
Thank you, Congressman Fortun. Mr. Melvin Matibag of PDP Laban, sir.
Well, just like what Congressman Portun said, the support of PDP Laban to Senator Bongbong Marcos is not for political exigency, but also it's a product of a long deliberation. And when Senator Bongbong Marcos agreed to carry the 11-point agenda of PDP Laban, that seals the deal. So yun talaga yung naging basis natin dito. We're looking for somebody who will continue and push the development and the projects that started with President Duterte. So doon naman talaga yung tinignan. And din yung tinitingnan ng mga local leaders natin. Kaya naman yung local leaders ng PDP Laban ay buong-buong suporta sa tandem ni Senator Bongbong Marcos at Mayor Sara Duterte. And thank you very much for having me on your show, Ma'am Pia.
Melvin Matibag, Secretary General, PDP Laban, Kusi Faction. Tingnan natin kung ano magiging decision ng COMELEC. Baka naman lumabas yan eve of the elections. Anyway, okay, final words now from Lito David, VP candidate.
Naniniwala ako, Pia, na hindi pa tapos ito. Maraming puwersa pa yung gagalaw. Kung magkakausap-usap lang, kaya pantalunin si Bongbong at saka si Sara. Hindi naman to kumbaga matatapos lang sa ganyan. Kung gagalaw yung lahat ng simbahan, for example, kaya pa. Yun yung aking hope. Kaya nga, mas maaga ko nang sinabi yung proposal, hindi na ako nagpatumpik-tumpik pa. Kasi kung April ko pa sasabihin yan, totally wala na. Inagahan ko na nga kasi nakita ko na yung numero So, importante na pag-aralan maigi at mag-usap-usap na tayong lahat. Let's do the noble act. The noble act, a selfless act.
Di ba, meron pa naman kayong 2 araw sa Marso.
Pwede pa naman ang April.
Wait, that's true. Okay, now I want to reconsider what I said. I mean, mamaya mababash na naman ako sa hidarang sa tapos ng laban. No, let me put it this way, no? Hindi po matapos ang ating politika at demokrasya by the ballot box later this year. There'll still be democratic struggle. There'll still be politics. Kaya mahalaga what we're gonna do during these elections until the very last moment. Because you want to set a good precedence for the next elections, for the next chapter of democratic struggle in the country. Kaya nga, in that sense, hindi tapos ang laban and I don't think it will ever end in that sense. So I think that's the other thing that I want to emphasize here. That's why it's not only about winning and losing, it's about how you fight the good fight and what precedence you set for the next generation. And as a millennial, down the road, we hope there'll be a next generation of leaders down the road. We're watching what our the adults in the room are doing, right? Para you set a good precedent. I'm trying to be politically correct. How can I put it? The adults in the room, right? Pinapanood namin kayo. And the Gen Zs who are the first time gonna join, they want to see also a good fight, a noble fight by all sides, no? So for me, in that sense, hindi tapos ang laban. And March is not the end point of everything.
And let's work for runoff elections, no? Or,
and that has been my advocacy.
Some form that will not allow 10 candidates running for president and 9 for
Or
VP,
perhaps
no?
we have to shift na to a parliamentary form. So we have no need
Which
for
will
that.
be the priority of the next ad. And that's what I'm saying. If the margin is very big for the victor, maging mas madali sa
then
kanya.
it'll be easier for him or
Exactly.
her,
So that's why I'm saying margin matters. If the winner is a 70% guy, he can probably change the constitution in the first 2 years.
Okay, natatakot na yung mga producers kasi baka mag-OT tayo. Dahil iba na yung pinag-uusapan natin parliamentary. But anyway, di bale, magpa-part 2 tayo, babalik naman kayo. And Richard, I'll see you on election day, of course, May 9, that evening. So, thank you to our guests. Earlier, Secretary Rene De Villa of Partido Reforma, Chairman Emeritus, Melvin Matibag, PDP Laban Kusi Faction, Congressman Lawrence Fortun, Agusan Norte, 1st District, who is with Lenny Robredo, VP candidate Lito David, who's made that proposal for a united front against BBM and Sara, and Richard Haydarian, an analyst. Ang tagal, no? Before we saw you again. So welcome back to CNN Philippines. Thank you so much for being here. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or at a family reunion or in Viber groups and risk digital warfare. But we can talk about it here at this table on the show. Your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. See you back here next Tuesday, 8 p.m.